Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Fort Collins Book Fest. My name is Revati, and I am excited to be part of the 6th Book Festival and help celebrate the importance of literature, writing, books, and of course, our libraries. We have a great lineup this year of virtual and in-person sessions through the festival. You can find the full schedule online at focobookfest.org. It includes book talks, writing workshops, prose, poetry readings, panel discussions, much like the one you're going to see soon. Make sure to attend as many as you can. Tell your friends, tell your family. Just before I introduce our lovely romance writers, I want to take a moment to thank our festival sponsors. We couldn't do it without them, and this is a really important annual community festival. The festival is produced by Poudre River Public Library District. Our presenting sponsors are the City of Fort Collins Fort Fund and Colorado State University Libraries. Further support by Poudre River Library Trust, Downtown Fort Collins Creative District, Fort Range Community College, and our media partners, KUNC and 101.5 The Colorado Sound. Thank you guys all so much. Okay, so let's get to our sip on something steamy session. I know it's a mouthful, and I'm the one that did that. So I'd like to introduce all of our 3 authors now. First, we have Kerrigan Byrne, who has done many things to pay the bills, from law enforcement to being a belly dance instructor. Now she's finally able to have the career she's decided upon at 13 when she announced to her very skeptical family that she was going to, quote, grow up to be a romance novelist. Whether she's writing about Celtic druids, Victorian bad boys, or brash Irish FBI agents, Kerrigan uses her borderline obsessive passion for history, her extensive Celtic ancestry, and her love of Shakespeare in almost every story. She lives with her husband on the coast of Washington State's Olympic Peninsula in a Victoria-era town almost frozen in time. When she's not writing, you might find her at the beach with her dogs, lounging at a local vineyard or brewery, or buying things she doesn't need at antique stores, which I think we can all relate to. Amalie Howard is a USA Today Publishers Weekly bestselling novelist, most notably of The Beast of Beswick, a, quote, smart, sexy, deliciously feminist romance, and one of the Oprah magazine's top 24 best historicals to read. She has penned several award-winning young adult novels, critically acclaimed by Kirkus, Publishers Weekly, Voya, Sound Library Journal, and Booklist, including Bloodcraft and Alpha Goddess. Amalie is of Indo-Caribbean descent and has written articles on multicultural fiction for the Portland Book Review and Ravishly magazine. She currently lives in Colorado, so you might see her around town, with her husband and 3 kids. You can also visit her at amaliehoward.com. And last but not least, we have Sophie Jordan, who grew up in the Texas Hill Country, where she wove fantasies of dragons, warriors, and princesses. She's also the New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of Avon Historical Romances. She now lives in Houston with her family. When she's not writing, she spends her time overloading on caffeine, lattes and Diet Cherry Coke preferred, talking plot lines with anyone who will listen, including her kids, and cramming her DVR with true crime and reality TV shows. Sophie also writes paranormal romances under the name Sherry Kohler. Please join me in welcoming Kerrigan, Amalie, and Sophie. Hi, everyone. Thanks. Until I was going through this, I didn't realize everyone's coming from a different state. I was so glad we could all make this happen.
Awesome.
And I guess my first question to you all, kind of to get us kind of easing into this, why did you choose to write historical romance of all the genres? It's a very specific one. Sophie, I'll let you start.
Gets to start. Okay. Why did we choose historical romance? Chose me. No, honestly, in the 80s and the 90s, and I just totally aged myself. It was, I'd have to say, out of romance, it was like the largest piece of the pie. Like, I remember walking into bookstores and looking at the romance section, and it felt like 80% of it was historical romance. But even before then, that's what my mother and my grandmother were reading. So my first taste of romance, it was historical. And then from there, I kind of dipped into, my mother would get a box in the mail every month of like 10 Harlequin titles. And those were mostly contemporary, although Harlequin also had historicals. But yeah, I loved it. I cut my teeth on it, reading it. And then ultimately I started, at 15 or 16, probably too young I started writing in like just spiral notebooks. Like I'd finish one and then I'd start having ideas it would trigger. And then I just started filling up spiral notebooks. So, there's a legacy to it that I fell into.
Yeah. How about you, Kerrigan?
I hate to say she stole my answer, but that was really close. Like my sister stole Harlequin historicals from her best friend's grandma, who had them by the bucketful. I mean, she had just shelves and shelves and shelves. And then I stole them from her. We were both too young to be reading them. But I think part of it too is just I'm kind of an Anglophile. I take in every kind of British pop culture that I can, so that includes literature. And when it comes to history, I just think it's kind of fun to write about people who are playing by different roles than we are, maybe who speak in a different way and have different expectations. And part of it's the research that we get to do. Like that's a lot of the fun for me. So.
Amalie?
Okay, let's just get down to it. Romance writers are stealers from their grandmothers. Obviously, you have three people that have just told you they steal from their grandmas. Because I also stole from my grandma her Harlequin books, and I would put them behind my textbooks when I was in high school, pretending to be, studying when I was reading all these delicious stories of dukes and people with really nice things and falling in love and all these sexy scenes. I actually started writing in, so like Sophie and Kerrigan, I read the J's, Judith McNaught, Jude Devereux, Julie Garwood, devoured them. And I started out in YA. And then, a bunch of different contracts and stuff. I was writing with my co-writer and we were like talking about dastardly dukes and, virile viscounts and whatnot. And we suddenly decided to say, hey, let's try to write a story. And that was our first book, which was My Rogue, My Ruin. And, I have always loved it. So I think, touching on what Kerrigan said as well, the research, writing about women who were sort of, trapped in different rules, different social expectations. It's always nice to show that feminism existed and it's not an anachronistic term, and that these women can get around these social expectations to get what they want. Like I really love being able to bend those rules and to do that, but to show that, they weren't just sitting there saying, this is our lot and we're going to live with it. We write characters that are like, nope, this is what we want. We're going to go get it.
Yeah.
Feminism is our second favorite F word.
That's funny that you all stole from your grandmothers, because I kind of wonder if every romance reader did that as well. Because I remember I was a teen, probably a little too young, and I stole my first Harlequin from like a cousin because she had it in the bathroom. And so I don't think anyone finds their first romance novel necessarily in a store or library or something.
Oh, for sure. I think I found one the other day in my bookshelf that had like a girl from high school and she was like 15 with her name written in it, in like cursive.
Oh,
I was like,
yeah.
oh, wow, I stole this.
That actually, because that kind of makes me remind me of especially during the pandemic. I don't know if you guys have indulged more in guilty pleasures, because why not?
What are you talking about 30 pounds later? I don't know. What do you mean?
Yeah.
I know, unrelatable.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure my blood is mostly cheese at this point. I give up.
Mine is Pinot Noir. I'm there.
Did you guys, when you started writing and or reading, were it's kind of like a guilty thing that you hid? In your, did you hide books around? Because I remember when I was younger, I kind of hid books around the house or something like that. Kind of when did you come out of hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing? Because I know a lot of you pen names or just kind of hiding it. I don't know how you feel about it's kind of a vague question, but
I don't know why in the beginning I thought I needed to hide it from my mother or my grandmother that I was taking their books, because they really didn't care. They really did not care when they found out. But there's something obviously indoctrinated in us very young, or there used to be at least, because I do not think I've done this with my own daughter now, but from that young age, I was reading this book and it had sexy times in it and it felt so scandalous. I was constantly looking over my shoulder. I mean, now I'm a grown woman and I'm like, hey, I'm loud and proud and I'm reading it on planes and airports and anyone can see the cover. I don't need to hide it from anybody. There was this awkward moment where like, I took a romance novel to my friend's house because it felt so, naughty and I wanted, and it was wonderful. It was like I just discovered like, hey, like I'm pulling it out like it's a joint, okay? And I'm like, hey, try this, and her dad walked in the room and I remember being mortified and I hid it behind my back and he was like, what do you have there? And again, it's like I'm hiding drugs or something. And it was a romance novel and I wouldn't bring it out from behind my back. And he was like, what do you have? Like he was super like suspicious and it got a little awkward. I was like, nothing real. And I knew my face was burning and I'm hiding it and I'm stuffing it down the back of my pants. And I just awkward 12-year-old in that moment. I don't know why I didn't just pull it out and say, hey, it's a romance novel.
Yeah.
Let your daughter read it. Introduce her to, positive female messaging and archetypes. There you go.
Yeah, it seems like you always like, especially when I was younger, you think people really care what you're doing a lot.
Yeah.
No,
I think I boiled the frog slowly too. Like I think I started with Austen and then moved to Holt. Like I found Victoria Holt in my junior high school library. And I love it because I grew up on mysteries mostly and a lot of like my family's kind of nerdy. So it was a lot of like sci-fi fantasy, C.S. Lewis, Tolkien, that kind of thing. And then like, then I think I found it and I was in like this, like I was feeling wangsty, I guess. And I started reading a lot of like Anne Rice and Gothic-y stuff, because I needed things that were black, like my soul, because you're 13. And like, I just remember finding that and being like, the angst, the sweeping romance of it, the like mad kisses in the storm. And it's so great. And then I think then my sister was like, and my sister and I didn't have a lot in common at the time. And she was like, oh, if you like Victoria Holt, then do I have something for you kind of thing. And that's when like like Harlequin started. And I think we never told our parents about it. My mom found it one time when I was older, like 16 or so. And she was like, these aren't the sexy kind, are they? And I'm like, no. And she believed me, which I don't know. And she's like, okay, well, all I'm going to tell you is that men act in here like they shouldn't act in real life. So just keep that in mind. And I was like, okay. And then, but that's actually something I have kept in mind. Sometimes, which is a really long conversation we could have if you wanted to. But other than that, like I just remember being like, okay, interesting, like interesting thing to bring up, Mom, thanks. And then I don't know. Then after that, it was just sort of, I was out and proud. So.
I mean, like that's a lot to unpack when you tell your kid that, right? Like men act like in these romance novels like they shouldn't in real life,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's unpack for a little. Like, is it because they deliver orgasms? What is it? I don't know.
No, but in the older ones, a little bit.
The older ones.
The older ones.
Yeah,
Probably.
I mean, like I always say like, because people are like, oh, do you let your kids read your books? I mean, I have a 17-year-old, 15-year-old, and a 12-year-old girl. I would much prefer my son read one of my historical romance novels that sort of meshes intimacy, respect, conversation, and all these different layers with the sex, as opposed to going on, online and looking it up without context. Like at least
or
there's
learning from or learning from the boys on the bus, because I'm sure
Yeah.
that's
Right,
really,
exactly.
you know,
or
a
in the
good
locker
idea.
room. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you know.
Yeah.
I think we could
Yeah.
do worse than teaching boys that female pleasure is the point.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah,
Mhm,
and I think
for
a
sure.
lot of times too, always parts I enjoyed is like whenever it's written from like the male perspective, you get to see their like weaknesses or like insecurities. And I don't now they're on section of like boys. I'm like, hey, women like that. They like to know the other person is human. It's not just like
Yeah.
the sexy stuff. Although, we like the
I
spicy
mean,
stuff.
yeah, we like the alpha
Absolutely.
holes, but we also like the cinnamon buns, I
We
love
like
it.
Roy
them.
Kent. We
Well,
like
you
it when
never-
they cry a little.
Well, the best romance novels show the vulnerability of both sides. You know,
Yeah.
if the hero never gets vulnerable, gets real, and then your heroine doesn't, it's just, something's missing. It's not a satisfying read. And
Yeah.
that's my dog. You can hear him moaning and groaning. He needs
Aw.
attention. He's speaking of alpha dogs. He just wants some attention. Yeah.
Do any of you have like favorite scenes you like to write or tropes? I don't know.
Oh, so many.
I know there's so many. I've really been stuck in a like, enemies to lovers one.
I
Although someone
love
pointed out it's
enemies
like
to lovers.
enemies to reluctant friends to respect to lover. It's a little further than that.
I love a good second chance. Like I find myself doing that often when there's already some past between the characters and something hurdles that they need to get over right away. I think I am trying not to do that as much because I feel like I can remanufacture plot lines if I do that sometimes, but I'm drawn to that quite often.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna go
that's
out on a long limb and be like, I like secret babies. Nobody hurt me. God, secret baby is like it will start
Babies?
wars. There are people who will die on hills for secret babies, and I'm like, give me some secret baby. Quick.
Hey, I've done it. Although, wait, it was my first book. So wait, what does that mean? That's a long time ago. I like A Marriage of Convenience a lot,
Mhm.
and it's so classic. But it's because you're taking two people that really they could be enemies to lovers in there. They could just be strangers, whatever. They don't know each other, or they come to this agreement like, we're going to marry, but we're just going to be. I mean, maybe they have to get together and have a baby. Maybe they agree to make it platonic. There's a lot of ways to do it, first of all. So I think you have a good chance of not recreating the same storyline if you want to do it. But there's just something so satisfying because the reader knows, like, these two are going to get together. It's a marriage of convenience, and they have vowed it's not going to be a real marriage. But of course, it's going to become a real marriage. And that leads right into the one room, we're stuck at the end for the night, one room, one bed. I love it. I've done it so many times.
Yeah.
I've read it so many times. I mean, you don't even need to put the summary on the back of the book. All you have to write on the back of the book is one room, one bed, and I'll buy it. I don't need to know the characters' names. I don't need to even, and it crosses subgenre. Like, it could be contemporary, it could be historical. I will be there for it because the awkwardness and the steaminess, it's coming. Oh my gosh, if you do a one room, one bed and don't deliver any steam to that, that's just
furniture. Come on.
Such a disappointment. It is. It's so rude. I'm not saying the consummation has to happen in that scene, but there better be some shenanigans.
I feel like the best.
What do they call it?
romance-
Chekhov's gun or whatever. If you see the gun in the first act, you have to fire it. Like it's Chekhov's bed.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't use it, don't put it in there.
Why didn't we have that scene? Exactly.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I feel like the best thing about romance is that, if you're talking about the back of the book, is that no matter what trope is in the book, you're getting the HEA. So you're in a safe space. You're being delivered by the writers to this journey, and it could be any trope. And I like all the tropes. Trope.
If you look back through my like handwritten teenage notebooks when I tried to start being a writer, there was a lot of the like they're stuck in the storm and one of them's really cold and has to get hypothermia, so they have to strip down and keep each other warm.
Oh,
I saw that in
yeah.
like a show somewhere and I was like, that's how you get naked. That's how you get naked with no shoes.
I love
Like,
that one. We must come together for our body warmth.
Right. Yeah. That was, there was a
Survival.
lot of that. It was a very
Survival.
chilly, I was a very chilly writer back in the day. So
That was good.
Oh my God. Another thing, because like I know I briefly talked about this a little bit with Amalie, because it was kind of surprising, and I don't know if it's surprising to other people, but like you guys mentioned like research and things like that for your book, which is great, but I just always like, oh, they're historical romance, it's just fun. Put on some corsets and like have some fun. But you guys, you do some research, like a fair bit, and you like try to make it accurate despite these like, you know, lofty fun people. Do you enjoy that bit, or like how much do you put into it?
I love research.
Sorry, I'll call on someone.
I love research, and I like having that authenticity, the level of it there. I mean, I know there's a few historical romances that people say that are, you know, you have to suspend disbelief in historical fantasy and whatnot. I mean, we have to suspend disbelief every way. How many dukes were there? Like, there's 9 million dukes. Everybody has great teeth. Nobody shaves their legs.
They're good looking
bathes.
and tan. Come on.
I know, right? Yeah. It's like,
tan Englishman. Yeah.
right.
I know.
But I think like for me, I like to have a little bit of authenticity in terms of like setting, especially social expectations. You have readers. I mean, I have readers that will email me and say like, you're wrong. The etymology on this is not correct. So I like to make sure that I double check those. I don't want it to be too much, you know what I mean? But I like it to be there. I like the touches to be there. Especially if you're writing like within a certain period, you want to make sure that you aren't using words like plastic in the Regency, because that didn't really exist then, you know. But I mean, what do you guys think, Kerrigan, Sophie?
Yeah, I mean, I keep my online etymology page is open all the time because it's the same thing. Sometimes I'll come up with a phrase and I'm like, wait, would that phrase have been around? I'm constantly looking up the origin of words and phrases. And as far as research, I mean, all three of us, we've disclosed, I mean, we've cut our teeth reading historicals from a very, very early age. So I think we all have a solid background, but really it's just sort of, I'm always stopping and looking up as needed. My current novel I'm writing, she's a lady blacksmith, and I really don't know a lot about blacksmithing. So I did find a site on blacksmithing and I'm looking things up. And I found out that the blacksmith stores were often robbed for nails. They were such a commodity. I never knew. So I would think they'd just be robbed for big things, but that was such an easy thing. They'd break in, they'd steal all the nails because people could sell them. They were expensive. And I'm like, oh, so right away, spoiler, I'm like, I'm going to have a scene where she gets robbed and they just take the nails. Like, so it's like you find these little things that serve you and serve a purpose. And that, you know, and that purpose right away, it's always still, this is what's important as a romance writer. We are always, whatever research we find, these are romance novels. So everything we find has to go to furthering the romance story, the relationship between these two. So again, yeah, I'm like, how am I going to work that in? Well, she gets robbed, someone gets injured, the hero gets to, oh, here you go, Kerrigan, take care of her and nurse her because she gets injured in the store, robbing, you know, like everything. Ultimately, here we find this great nugget of research, but it's got to go back to furthering the romance between the main characters.
And I think you can find a lot of really good ideas too, when you're doing research, because there are when things are invented and when things became mainstream, and think about how long that takes now versus even longer back then. So like sometimes it's fun to have, if you're writing about really wealthy people, have telephones in the 1890s or something crazy like that you can really change the rules up for them. Or like with what Sophie did, you know, like I was doing research on some medical research, and I read about how there was like a really intense criminal trade with medical universities where they would pay grave robbers because they didn't have enough skeletons to articulate and that kind of thing. And so I thought, like, what a cool thing for a desperate human to do is go look for bodies to, like, you know, to So that's something that you can throw into a book that you never would
Right.
have thought about, but you find while you're doing research. So
I actually just started watching Taboo. It's like from a few years ago. It's got that guy, who's the guy?
Yeah.
Tom
Mad
Hardy.
Max, I forget the Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
And I looked at that and they were like saying, did you pay the extra shilling so that they bury you 2 feet deeper? Because the grave robbers would come when it was buried at regular level. And I was like, wow. Otherwise you're getting robbed. Your
That's
body
the
was
little,
getting stolen.
I think that's it. Exactly. That little bit of thing that like lends authenticity to the story, right? That's cool.
Right. And I think readers give us different feedback too. Some people will say like, oh, there's too much of this, or whatever. And other people say, I love it when I have to stop and look something up. I do. I love it when I have to stop and look something up and say, is this real? And I think even though we do take creative license, sometimes you have to sort of know the rules to break them. So it's always good to sort of know what happened and then decide what you're going to do with that.
That's right.
I'm gonna sew that on a pillow. Kerrigan Byrne said, you have to know the rules, break them. It sounds awesome.
I'm sure I didn't come up with that.
It sounds good though.
That's nice that you look at it. Now I feel bad. I'm thinking back to things I've read in historical romance novels, and I've just taken them as fact sometimes. Like I remember there was one, I forget who the author was now, but like the woman was like seeing her dying father who was sick, and like the man that she was like getting to help her was like, okay, like time's up, because he's like, I don't want you to get sick. I heard there's these things called germs. And she's like, what? I'm summarizing.
She's like looking around the room like some like large furry creature is gonna come.
Right. And he was like, you can't see them, they're there and you could get sick. And she was like, that doesn't sound real. And I was like, oh yeah, because I didn't know about that. And I was like, this is a fact at the time. And it actually was, now looking back, and like now that that's come up again. So I'm glad you guys do the research, because I'm just taking it as facts sometimes.
I think it probably makes us ridiculous too, because there's times when I'll be like watching a movie and I don't remember things that are important or necessary or what I did yesterday or what I'm supposed to be doing today, but I'll be watching a movie and I'll be like, zippers weren't invented till 1914, you know what I mean? And I'll be like, this movie's ruined, and I'll rage flip the table, it makes us, I'm sure, just pedantic and
I mean, it comes to a point. In a manuscript once, I reached a point where I was like, a historical, well-known fact will pop up, and I'm like, wait a minute, they can't just get married tomorrow. There has to be banns, or unless I'm going to have them elope. Like, I mean, but it changed the entire plot and the rest of the book, the projection, because I was like, well, they're not getting married tomorrow.
Don't forget the Archbishop. You can always
unless someone's getting a special license or they're fleeing to Scotland. And would that be
Greta Green?
I know, like it could. And rest assured, if I ignored that fact, that is such a well-known common one. I mean, readers would go nuts, like, wait a minute, he did not marry them like 5 hours after they met, whatever. There has to be bans for 21 days and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay. Time to go back, either rewrite, start over, or figure out a twist to this, that's getting creative. Yeah.
I think the hardest thing too is when you get like a reviewer or a blogger who will call you out on something that they think is a fact. And then you're like, I can't argue with you, but I promise I knew what I was doing here. Also, why didn't you talk about the book? Like they'll spend the whole time. Like there was somebody who spent the whole time about a couple who went out on a date. Well, they were middle-class couple in the late Victorian era who were, one was a widow and another was a lawman. And so, they went to the theater together. And these people were used to kind of reading about dukes and such who had very different rules than like the rabble who could, like, women could just go to bars if they wanted, if they were in the working class and really cared to do. So there's stuff like that where you just you get called out on it sometimes, and you're like, no, I do promise I know history. Like, I do promise I know this. Like, but you don't argue.
No, I've read reviews that I think there's a new wave in historical romance right now. I don't even know how new, probably the last 5 years at least, and not even, it didn't happen yesterday, but like we're writing more forward thinking heroines, more feminist. And it's not like, as I think Amalie was, they existed. They were there too, but I've read reviews where like, this woman just seems way too modern and she's way too aggressive or way too, and I'm like, what? Like I these women existed, and I promise you, babies were born out of wedlock even 100 years ago. Like, it's just that they think history was somehow rose tinted for some reason,
I think the challenge also comes for us as authors having to write for readers with a modern lens while respecting the historical sort of rules. And that's hard. I like reading about, feminist women because you're absolutely right. They did exist. But, everyone's going to have an opinion about everything. So I think it's kind of like you just read or write what you love to read, which is what I do. That's not to say I don't love the older books. I still have them. They're so old and I, love them, but I also love, the more modern type, as you just said, historicals that are like very frothy and very like, strong, dominant women who know what they want, go get it. And, to hell with the rules that society has placed on them.
Yeah, I like
my favorite historical old school, which I read multiple times. Well, I was a big Johanna Lindsay reader. And
I love the Mallory Anderson series.
Oh, the Magic of You. The reason I liked Amy so much is because in the very first scene, she tells the hero, "I want you," and he's like, "What? No, what? Are you talking to me? Like, wait, are you that like forward?" She's like, "Absolutely, I am," and it was fabulous in that she was so assertive. She knew what she wanted, which was him. She wanted to marry him. She wanted him. She was in love with him and hung up with him. And the minute she saw him, she knew, this is the man I want to marry. And then she just let him know. And he kept telling her, no, 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 no. And she was like, I'm still here. I adored that book because at the time it was so like refreshing. It was so different. And and talk about like the ending of that, the end of that book was such a gut punch, because finally, obviously, I'm not spoiling it. First of all, the book's like 30 years old and it's an H, and it's going to end happily ever after. But at the end, he's finally going to be on his knees for her. And it's just so satisfying. I just loved it.
That's awesome.
I always take those like little, like your facts and stuff as like little extras. But like, when you said like readers don't like certain things, it's like, well, do they like the spirit of the book? Which I almost feel like you can tell from the back, like Joanna, like Sophie mentioned, sorry, like, you're like, oh, it has a bed and an inn. Cool, I'm there. Like you can tell readers that read romance are like, what the spirit of the book is typically. It's going to have some surprises, but like,
Listen, guys, there are people who don't like chocolate and puppies. Just saying.
They're not my friends, but yes, they exist. No. Hey, before I even knew what trope meant, when I'm 13, 14, 15, reading the back of the book, I'm looking for the trope, right? I knew you already knew what you wanted and you knew what you liked, and you were going to be there for that. You were going to take on that ride of that book because it was promised, right? In the back. I talk about that. I hate writing copy, but I know it's really important. Like, if the book has this in it, like my current book, it's going to be Marriage of Convenience. I better communicate that right away to the reader, because the readers who love Marriage of Convenience, they want to know.
Yeah. Very true.
There's an interesting question from Meg. She said, have you ever written or considered writing a book where there isn't a happy ending, where the man and woman don't get together?
So that's where after the title, you have a novel is written.
That's called a good book, but not a romance necessarily. It's just not a romance. But I read outside the genre. I read a lot of thrillers and suspense, and they're and domestic suspenses, and I love them, but it's not a romance novel.
Right.
I wouldn't. The question was like, have you ever considered writing? I like the HEA. And even in YA, when I wrote that YA romance, I like that happy for now, because obviously at 17 you don't know if you're going to end up with that person forever, but I like that satisfaction. I like knowing that, and I mentioned this before, you're safe in the journey of the writer taking you from point A to point B, and you're going to get there and be satisfied.
I find myself I write in a couple of different genres. I write mystery, but I think even though mystery can end sadly, you still have to find out who did it at the end. There's always rules. There has to be an HEA for romance, and for mysteries you have to find out who murdered, even if no one's happy about it, even if it's a really sad reveal and everybody's super bummed at the end. You still have to sort of do that, in order for that genre to work. But also I just signed a contract for Arden Harper with Macmillan to do some thrillers, and I'm kind of excited to write something where I don't, where you can blow up a frag bomb at the end if you want to, and you don't have to sweep it up. So yeah, sometimes I think about it.
Yeah, and
I'm not coming to your house anymore.
I read a couple romance or kind of light romance ones that they end up together or okay, but everything's not quite wrapped up, and then you have a second book where there's another thing happening, and then they get married or something. They really get solidified in the second book. But yeah, otherwise I wouldn't be too happy about that as a romance reader.
I think that in historical, typically the canon is to have a couple that gets a start and an end. And in other genres, you do have that continuing couple where they might break up or they might fall for someone else. Or, I keep thinking of Sarah J. Maas's book, A Court of Thorns and Roses, where she starts out with this one person, and then in the next book she goes for someone else, and you're like, oh my God, I love him way more than I love the guy in book one. And authors who do that and do it well, I mean, that's like candy to me as well.
Oh yeah.
Do you guys, Bob, I know you all are pretty prolific, and some of you do the series and things. Do you try to go through your series in order, or do you kind of bop around with what you're writing?
Oh, I'm totally chronological. I can't even write scenes out of order.
Oh,
which is kind of a bummer, because if I'm blocked in one scene, some people will be like, oh, I'll just go write something else, and I'll be like, nope, this is where I die now, all right, just take me into the table, here's where I go.
Yeah, I'm super linear too. I can't do that. People write scenes and plug it around, and I think Scrivener, there are people, if we're talking writing platforms, love stuff like that. I need Word, and I start here and I go there. Yeah. Very boring. Same.
I generally write in order, but I do hop around a little. Sometimes, right now I'm on deadline and it's awful. So, I mean, deadline as in I have 2 weeks left, and that, all the days where I took my time or didn't get to it, now my word count is unbearably high per day. Yeah. So I'm drinking iced coffee, and y'all are like, oh, I know that, because I do realize, okay, I'm going over a piece that I kind of left unresolved. I didn't finish it. I didn't write the hook at the end of that scene. So I'm kind of finishing that in the morning, but it's painstaking, right? It's slow. I'm not adding a lot of words and doing that. So I'm working on that scene, which is in the first third, and then I'm toward the end of the book, I'm moving forward. I'm still going. So it's slow in the morning, going over, going at the end.
That's exactly how I write. I love that.
Oh, good.
I mean, I love / hate it, but yeah.
Because a lot of times I'm okay, I wrote this scene, 90% of it's done, but I'm moving on. It just, I mean, the thing is, I always want to feel, I have this, when it's close to the deadline, I kind of feel like I'm finished. I'm getting somewhere, making progress. And I could spend a lifetime going over the same scene. It's hard sometimes to move on.
I'm laughing because I just got a letter from my editor this morning going, can we have a call on Monday? And I was my whole stomach just went to the ground. I was like, what does this mean? What is she
exactly? Wait, that's you have the whole weekend to angst about this.
I'm gonna stew about it. And I love her. She's new. I haven't worked with her before, so I'm excited because I think we mesh really well. But it's I'm nervous to see what she's gonna say. But you know, you have that moment where you're like, wait, no, they bought your book, so they do like you.
Yeah, they're not going back. My very first contract I sold, I think for a month I was like, I'm gonna get a call that it was a joke. Like they really changed, they just changed their mind. That doesn't really happen. That doesn't happen. Once they buy your book, they buy your book. They believe in it. They're not gonna change their mind.
Kerrigan, you mentioned writing some mysteries. We have another question online, and it is, if you're gonna write another romance genre other than historical, what would you love to try? I have some guesses based on some of the other books, but
I mean, definitely romantic suspense. I think I am really plot driven, which I think is sometimes a weakness because I like reading character driven stories, and I try to make my stories as character driven as possible, but I tend to throw the whole kitchen sink into the plot, and then when I'm running up against deadline, I am ripping my hair out because there's so many threads to tie together, and I'm like, man, I wish these guys just had feelings. That's all I had to resolve, you know, like, but I'm like, I have to figure out who did it. Usually, like, I mean, my editor's always crawling up my wherever, and it's like asking, like, so this is a romance, it's not a thriller, like, you need to pull back the, you know, like, could we have fewer bodies that are dead and more bodies that are naked? So I do skew that way, and so I think I have a lot of I'm burning to write this sort of like small town romantic suspense because I live in a very quirky small town, and 2 years ago there was a body that was found in a hammock in a tree that had been there for like 4 months, and I like can't forget
Wait,
about
the body
it.
or the hammock?
The body in the hammock. The body in the hammock was there for and like I had been walking my dog under like along that trail for the whole time, and the whole time there's this like dead guy above the whole, you know, and there's stuff like that just like, and I live in such a quirky place that I want to write it, and I want to write about dead people in hammocks and people
Sounds
falling
like
in love while they look for the killer.
Yeah, island kind of thing.
Yes, totally. Yeah, totally. So someday when I, you know, when I can indulge myself, that's what I would love to do.
What about you, Amalie? Maybe some paranormal?
Yeah,
romance?
I mean, I love reading paranormal. The thing that I can't see myself writing is probably contemporary, but definitely science fiction and definitely fantasy. And I have some of both hopefully coming soon. I'm like a huge fan of like really big epic worlds, you know, with like, you know, different types of technology and space. Anything Star Wars, I love. So I want to mash up some Star Wars with some fantasy, so I have this like Persian fantasy that's got like some off-world stuff in it, and I'm really excited about it. So yeah.
Wow.
Anything from you, Sophie, or sticking to historical?
Well, you know, I've written everything already. So the only I've written young adult, I've written contemporary romance, paranormal romance, young adult fantasy, young adult paranormal, adult paranormal. The only thing really left that I have any interest in is adult suspense. I like the domestic suspenses, not quite thrillers, but the domestic suspense route that are a little quieter and insidious and really dark. So yeah, I might play around with that. We will see. But I'm still sticking to historical romance too. It's nice to be doing multiple things because you start one thing, you immerse yourself in that, and then when you come up for air, it's very nice to come in here and do something totally different.
Yeah. I'm gonna do some middle grade too, I think. I'm really excited about that.
Something different.
Yeah.
So we have about 15 minutes left. We have a couple more questions, but if you have any more, just put them in the comment section, just to remind people. Laura is asking Amalie, what was it like collaborating on writing a romance novel? What helped you and your co-author write together?
That's a good question. I mean, people do it differently. I'd say the biggest thing you have to have is a lot of trust and then no ego, which is really hard because if somebody says, hey, that chapter really sucks, you can't take that so personally. But I mean, obviously you deliver stuff with a little bit of, honey. My mom said you get more bees with that. But I mean, we start off in the beginning with writing, having a complete idea of where we're going. So we do usually a 20-page synopsis, which is very detailed. We know where the story's going, and then because our writing styles were very similar, we didn't take characters or we didn't take chapters. We just, whoever wrote for their given day, we split up the week. So Mondays and Wednesdays, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then Fridays was editing. We just write how much we got to. So sometimes I could write 500 words, sometimes you could write 2,000 words. And then we'd each edit what the other person wrote before and keep moving ahead. So our system was, that's how we did things. But I know a lot of people do collaborative writing differently. They might do, like I said, characters or one chapter, or even different POVs. So yeah, I mean, I think
so I'm so fascinated by this, Amalie. And do you feel like doing it that way? Y'all kind of probably were doing equal work, like no one wrote more faster than the other or anything like that.
I did write faster. So that was definitely something we had to talk about because you didn't want, and like where hurt feelings come in is like somebody's not feeling like they're doing sort of keeping up with, say, a faster partner. But my co-author, she was excellent at editing and line editing, which I suck at. So the balance with like putting out words on the front part and then her picking up a huge load on the back end just really evened things out in terms of like how much we both contributed to the book. So, I mean, that worked out. I mean, and obviously it's kind of like dating, right? It's you test. And sometimes it might work out and sometimes it might work out. We wrote 7 books together. So
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it kind of sounds like I forget what it's called. Is it call it like a corpse bride? I'm probably made that up. But that like where you read the previous sentence and you continue the story on.
Yeah, like Mad Libs, something like that, right?
Yeah. So I was like, I don't remember what it's called. It has a weird name, but it sounds like a more efficient way to do that.
But the neat thing is just having that synopsis up front, because then you have no surprises, and you don't write yourself in a corner. And I hate synopses, so we had to do it anyway. And then if something happened where a character did something different, then you'd have a call and say, hey, I think they should do X instead of this. And you both have to agree. And then I always say that if you're writing with a co-author, always have a collaborative agreement in place because things can go wrong.
Good advice. Yeah.
A question from Porchy for Sophie. How do you consider the new wave of writing feminist heroines during your writing process?
Oh, I don't know that it's too conscious of a I don't know if I'm sitting down deciding. I just think we're different. I mean, the world is different than it was when I was 20 years old. I'm 40 something. And it's just different. It's a different world. And I'm not a writer who's been holed up in her house either. I have an 18-year-old daughter. So I've kind of been watching her go through it. I've been watching her go through dating. It was nothing like what I came up in the world doing. So, and even though I'm writing historicals, there's just things in our psyche and things to consider that as I'm writing, I'm like, I never thought about that. I'm always, and now I'm a worried mom all the time. Okay. You don't know anxiety and fear until you have like, a teenager who's going on dates and putting herself in situations. And anyway, I just think it's made me a different person. Time, experience. I hate to say mother because I don't think you need motherhood to know these things either. You just need to be a girl and have friends and you get it. You know what I mean? I do think about, I have a son. I think about when I have my hero and heroine on the page, I think about consent in a different way. I love a good scene where, he fling. Yeah. Oh God, how much should I say?
Go
I
for
like
it.
a guy who
Caveat.
I like a guy who can be very physical and very strong. And you know, there's a way in which to write these scenes where he's not necessarily stopping and asking and having her sign consent, but there's still a way of letting it happen. And I think what I've learned as a writer, and can be a trick for anyone writing romance, when there is dialogue through the sex scene that you're writing, that right there is a process of consent. I feel like when there's a constant dialogue, and hey, I love dirty talk, Tessa Bailey does it better than anyone, but if you have that dialogue going, there's just sort of this understanding that, hey, we're talking and we're both really into it. I think about that even in historical, because, you know, I do write other, you know, I have written contemporary romance. So that's something to consider. And always, I want my heroine to have choices and to have agency. And when you're writing an historical romance, these are the conventions rob her of a lot of these things. So I want to make sure that she's fighting for agency, and that ultimately she's with the hero because she wants to be with the hero, not because it's the best choice at the time, not because, hey, I'm compelled, this is the best choice. Yeah. And I don't know, what do y'all think? I try not to write her, you know, I mean, yeah, I've written a heroine that gets rescued, but I also write heroes that get rescued too, right? Like it's sort of painting this like, hey, we're partners. And I think that's the thing right there, that they're partners and there's not one that has something up and over the other one.
Yeah.
Well, I think sometimes in historical too, there are things that can make a historical hero like a heroic quality that would be sort of a given in a contemporary hero. Like a lot of times an arc for historical hero characters are even just him figuring out that he respects a woman as much as himself or as much as a man, which I mean, nowadays, you know, that's not for, I would have a hard time with a contemporary hero who started out not respecting women at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's stuff like that that's a little, or expectation. Like there can be women in my personal experience that like would get married and then feel like I have to have a wedding night because it's historical, and that's sort of like very expected, and they don't necessarily feel like they can say no, but you know, does that make consent dicey? I don't know. That's one of the things that is called into question these days. But that's one of the things I find safe about writing in history as well, is because history it's not what is. And so you can sort of, it won't change, where like our world is very rapidly changing, and I'm really excited to watch what's happening and watch where it's going. But it's almost less stressful in a way to sort of write what already happened, you know, because that's, you know, it's already dated. It won't date itself very quickly. So.
It's sort of like a cheat, right? Like you're right. I wrote a book where the heroine wants to become a doctor. And I knew when I placed it in the year that 2 years from when I placed it in the epilogue, she would be able to go to medical school. Like, but I mean, you're right. Like,
spoiler alert, I just read the back of that book.
It's been out a while. You can't play. But I mean, I knew at the time, you know, you do know where all these milestones are in history.
I like what you said about, like, I love a guy to throw me around in the bedroom too, but outside of the bedroom, don't tell me what to do. Like, seriously, you know what I mean? I just feel like with consent, like, you know, it's also a balance, right? Because you don't want to have like the dialogue in your book where you're like, may I unlace your corset? May I like take your drawers off? May I roll your stockings
You don't
down?
want that kind of dialogue.
Right.
I mean, not to, again, I'm all with the spoilers. There was a scene, the show The Big Leap that started, and there's a scene between a very aggressive, dominant woman who's very like in charge and tells everybody to shut up all the time around her. She's the boss kind of, and she engages and has sex with this guy, and she sets the rules. She's like, you will not call me, I initiate, you never initiate. And he's just like, okay. And then as she stops because they'd already had one encounter, to walk away or get out of the car, she turns to him, she's like, I liked that when you pulled my hair, do that again. And I'm like, and he's like, okay, do you want, and she's like, no more words, and like leaves. I love that scene, you know? Like, yes, I mean, that's what, when you just said that, Amalie, that's what I thought of. I'm like, yeah, in real life, we don't want anyone to tell us what to do, but you know.
Again, which
like
is
on the flip side of that
romance,
too, like,
right?
oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, sorry. Again, which is a safe space of romance. You can look at stuff that you would not want in your real life, and it's safe in a novel.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're delivering a
and
fantasy.
I think there's stuff that we can't do. Like, I find myself getting pulled back sometimes. Like my editor will say, like I was writing a scene between a pirate and his wife, and like something was, he couldn't rip the bodice, something was stuck, so he had a knife, and she was like, whoa, but he just was cutting open the laces, right? And my editor said, no, he can't have a knife out, like not post Me Too, like she can never be afraid, like he can't have a knife out, you have to change that. Like there's no, you know, I get he's dangerous, and I get he's like this guy who has knives hidden everywhere. Some muscles
to rip that whalebone.
Right.
Yeah, but
I
was
know.
like,
See, right now that my like editor, if my editor told me that, I think I'd be like, okay, so I could see him doing the scene where he can't get them, and she grabs a knife and does it herself. She's like, give me your knife, and she just does it herself. Like, but you're right.
Totally,
these are the things and the kind of editorial that we get now. Yeah. I mean, things to think about now for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So I just got we have a few minute warning left. So any last minute thoughts before we start wrapping it up here? Although I am interested in that pirate scene. So
with the knife or without the knife?
Well, it's published without the knife for sure. But I guess, you know, I mean, that all depends on context too, right? Like, because there was, it wasn't a dubious consent, but there was definitely some, I don't, you know, if there's ever any fear in the room, I don't know. Like, it's all very great. All the areas are very great. So,
all right, we'll wrap it up with one last question. Why, you kind of some of you touched base on this a little bit, but why do you write historical romance versus current day romance? What do you think it adds to the power of the story?
I would say that I really enjoy finding out how similar humans have always been. And even though technologically we change a lot, and even societally we make some leaps forward, like people have always been people. And it's so interesting for me to see what they went through. Like one of my favorite quotes from history, and I always paraphrase it because I guess it's not a quote, it's a paraphrase, whatever. But it was like Marcus Aurelius said, like, politicians are dirty, everyone's writing a book, and children don't listen to their parents. You know, and that was like one of the biggest, like one of the biggest philosophers of like back in the old before times, you know. And so I just think that that's something I really enjoy writing about, you know, people going through an industrial revolution and facing changes and power shifts and struggles between the sexes and between the races and between the classes that we can see happening in our own lives, just on different scales, because people have always been people. Love has always been love, sex has always been sex, you know?
Nice.
I just think historical romance has always been escapism for me. I think, you know, you do see yourself in it because, you know, good historical romance authors, that's what, you know, they do. They put the emotions and the relationship are familiar, but the setting and the circumstances are so exciting and they sweep you away. I mean, it's why everybody loved watching Bridgerton on Netflix. You know, people who've never picked up a romance novel in their whole life, you're watching it, you know, that's what it is. And in this period of a pandemic where I have written contemporaries and everything, I was never so glad in my life to be writing and to have historical romances to escape into.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd just add that it's, you know, watching women sort of, for me, overcome stuff, you know, it's nice to see them overcoming stuff that you would want to overcome in your own life. You know what I mean? You don't feel as that you don't have any hope.
Yeah,
With pretty dresses on, you know?
Exactly.
of course. You can't forget a pretty dress. Everyone loves
Yeah.
that now and then.
Yeah.
Some boots. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Sophie, Kerrigan, Amalie, for spending this time with us, and everyone watching. Thank you at home. If you want to purchase any of our authors' books, you can visit Old Firehouse Books in store or online at oldfirehousebooks.com. Finally, if you could fill out a event survey at focobookfest.org, we'd really appreciate that. We rely on your input to plan future library programs and events like this. So that wraps up our sip on something steamy session. We have more great in-person and virtual events later this evening, all weekend long, including a selection of readings by local Northern Colorado authors tonight at Wolverine Farm Public House at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can check out the website for full schedule and enjoy the authors there as well. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
It was fun. Bye.
Bye.